To the actual war. Who would win in the battle between China and US? So both countries got to pick all of their allies as well. So we'll be starting the war. So the first couple of days will as well. The US starts to invade Cuba, but along with Dominican Republic them helping with Haiti. Oh, we got the bill in the Bahamas, but the Bahamas is not, and Trinidad and Tobago, but they're not gonna contribute much. Same thing with these islands. Vanuatu will be instantly defeated. Again, no surprises there. And Australia, along with help of the US and its allies, is gonna invade New Zealand. Is gonna start, but New Zealand does have some defenses, and they're gonna start to land on New Zealand. This country is completely surrounded by South Africa. Will surrender in like the first couple of days. As it has no way to be supported as well. Botswana will help its allies invade the panhandle of Namibia. Yes, Namibia may be a large country, but doesn't really have all too much population. And Uganda is completely surrounded by a bunch of enemies as well. Which again, why did the U.S. pick Uganda? Uganda is basically, and the invasion of Israel begins. But Israel is a pretty strong country, and this part of Azerbaijan is completely surrounded by Iran as well. And as to be expected, this part of India, with the help of China and its population, is completely being taken out, which is to no one's surprise. And Bangladesh, India is too busy fighting Pakistan to send too many troops towards that area, but they start to see that area is being surrounded, and at the very end start to send troops towards Bangladesh. Cambodia starts to be invaded by Vietnam. This isn't too surprising, as Cambodia is not a very strong country. And the first battle between Indonesia and Malaysia begin. Indonesia at first starts to lose land to Malaysia, but this may turn around very soon. China and Russia invade Mongolia, and they take it out very quickly. Same thing could be said with the US taking out Kosovo and Montenegro. These countries don't really have all too many people, and Bosnia is being invaded by them as well. But Croatia isn't doing too well against Italy and its allies as well. Germany starts to do what they did in World War II and invade France through Belgium. The US knows what happened last time and sends a ton of troops to basically defend France. Yes, the US may be the strongest country in the world, but they have to stretch their lands thin. And also Gambia surrenders as well. It's completely surrounded by Senegal, and same thing with these areas here. These areas fall almost instantaneously. Same thing with Belize, falls almost instantaneously, and USA starts a invasion of Mexico to itself. So the USA, most of its efforts is to secure Latin America as well. And of course, Ireland starts to be invaded by the UK. This serves as a very great distraction for Germany and Italy to start to invade France, as well as UK completely being distracted of Ireland, leaves France almost completely open as well. And of course, China now starts to focus its efforts on Korea, as Taiwan but it's slowed down with the help of the countries in the South China Sea, slowing down the fall. East Timor also falls. No surprises there. But Australia starts to invade. Australia will invade Papua New Guinea next after they're done with New Zealand. Kuwait is invaded just as quickly as it is in the Gulf War, as well as Saudi Arabia starts to invade the United Arab Emirates, but Iran and Pakistan are distracted by India, which leaves the Middle East open. Russia starts a rapid invasion of the Ukraine as Russia is almost completely surrounded. Also, Russia, along with Estonia and Latvia, Estonia and Lithuania completely surround and invade Latvia. Yeah, which doesn't take too long given Russia's superior military might, and they start to invade Belarus, starting a separate front in Eastern Europe. That is what happened in the first week of the war. Several countries already surrender, mostly on the U.S. side, but some also on Russia's side. It is basically a foul blow of trades. Yeah. A month of the war has continued, and Bosnia completely surrenders, and Croatia also is defeated by Italy. Italy also invades this island, as well as the Russia side starts to successfully invade Switzerland, as they are now defeating France as well. Even with all the help from Britain and the US, Germany starts to go onto the mainland offense into France. Meanwhile, the invasion of Ireland continues, and Ireland is very close to surrendering as well, which means the UK can help France. Portugal starts to be invaded by Spain, which serves as a major distraction as Spain cannot go and help France right away, which is why China picked Portugal, basically. Skirmishes in Africa start to begin, including the invasion of Liberia. Liberia was picked by Russia, but Liberia is not a very strong country. Same thing with Guinea-Bissau starting to be invaded. But Nigeria, and its allies quickly defeat Togo and are starting to quickly invade Burkina Faso as well. So Nigeria and its allies start to invade Burkina Faso. It starts to become a concern for the U.S. So the U.S. starts to send troops to that portion of Africa. Now they know Mexico is out in control. China and Russia and its allies start to invade Costa Rica. Costa Rica surrenders within under a month. Meanwhile, the invasion of Panama begins by Colombia. Yeah. There's not many troops going towards that war, which makes it a stalemate. Brazil and its allies start to invade Paraguay. Paraguay is not a very, it's kind of just like a bunch of dense jungle. That's all Paraguay is. So the invasion of the southern portion of South America really begins now. The invasion of Zambia also begins as well, as Zambia is almost completely surrounded on both sides. And however, a new front is starting to be created in Africa as well, which is something that why the U.S. picked South Africa and of course does not regret picking. South Africa starts to invade Botswana and Zimbabwe with relative ease within the first month of the war. These two countries are not very strong, so it looks like a reuniting of Rhodesia is extremely unlikely as well. Meanwhile, an invasion from Tanzania and an invasion From here, it starts to create the first African front. Here, Chad starts to be invaded by Central African Republic and Sudan. This is a very slow war, as Nigeria is mostly distracted by sweeping the area. These are mostly weaker countries, invading much stronger countries as well. Mostly with the efforts of Niger and other countries to mostly secure Africa. Ethiopia, however, makes a quick sweep of Somalia, given how weak it is, and Yemen is swept as well, with Iran helping the UAE and Oman so they don't surrender that quickly. However, China is able to secure this part of Asia, this part of India, but India starts to create a front with Bangladesh and China. This will be a very long and gruesome war. Also, India completely defeats Sri Lanka, as it does solve a distraction, but India has around 1.4 billion people. The invasion of Nepal begins, but it's going to be a very slow one as well. Cambodia is completely defeated, along with Laos. These are not very populated countries. And also, there's a new front in Southeast Asia that China is going to have to worry about. China sort of neglected its neighbors. China also does start to invade Vietnam, and the invasion of Korea is still going ever so slowly. Malaysia's early gains in Borneo, have definitely slowed down, and Malaysia also loses all of its land in Borneo. The USA is helping, since they do have the US can still send ships throughout the Pacific Ocean. Since the invasion of New Zealand continues to go pretty well. Most of the northern part of the North Island has been captured within a month, and New Zealand is on the brink of losing the war. Meanwhile, Russia starts to invade Kazakhstan with a very few amount of troops throughout the next month, and most of northern Kazakhstan is captured. These countries are almost completely surrounded. So within a matter of 3 months, most of these countries are mostly finding attrition. Tajikistan is the first of these Central Asian countries to collapse and completely surrender, but Turkmenistan is this one. Uzbekistan is the next country to be attacked. As well. This makes it a big problem for the US's allies, as the US had to pick some of these countries here, so China does not completely control this portion of the world. Meanwhile, US and allies start to basically make an invasion on Cyprus, and Lebanon, and Jordan starts to be invaded by all the countries the US picked. Jordan surrenders pretty quickly as well, with the US almost has a control on the Middle East. Meanwhile, Russia and Iran start to take out Azerbaijan as well. And China's starting to make a real mistake of not choosing Turkey over Egypt. Because yes, Egypt may have a lot of people, but Egypt is currently struggling against Israel and Turkey and its allies. Meanwhile, Greece and Bulgaria, for a short term, take over this part of the world. Meanwhile, Germany starts to make an invasion of Poland and pauses the invasion of France, only sending enough troops so they don't lose that battle. The invasion of the invasion of Belarus, not Bulgaria, begins, and the invasion of Ukraine begins. Begins. With the help of Bulgaria, and with the help of Macedonia, with the help of Greece, they start to retake portions of Eastern Europe. Five months in, and these areas completely surrender, which means the U.S. has lost its portion of the world. Update on the Battle of South America. The U.S. is basically on the brink of making Mexico surrender against them. Wait. Is on the brink of getting towards Mexico City. Yes, it took 5 months, but the U.S. is getting there. U.S. also has finally defeated Cuba, and also Haiti is gone, and Jamaica is gone as well. Also, the invasion of Panama still has been paused, as Colombia is starting to mostly invade Peru to defeat Peru. This will be a very slow invasion, as Peru is a mostly mountainous country. With the help of Ecuador and the U.S., this shouldn't be much of a problem. Meanwhile, Brazil is starting to become a big problem. There was a reason why China picked Brazil. Brazil has a lot of people, and the Brazilian army is starting to invade Argentina relatively quickly. The invasion of Argentina is going pretty quickly, and they're on right in the doorstep of defeating Argentina. Also, Chile is losing its coastline, which means Bolivia, for the first time in like 100 years, has a coastline. Also, Chad, also the invasion of Central Africa. The Central African War continues, and also Liberia surrenders as well, along with Oman and Arab Emirates. Both surrender. Yeah. Uganda also finally surrenders and loses, which no one is surprised by that. Zambia also surrenders, along with most of northern Malawi was defeated, which creates this front here, which means South Africa could not save its friend, and Namibia also gets its panhandle back. And they start to reclaim parts of Zambia, as well. And Malawi starts to get some of its territory back. Meanwhile, the Battle of Central Africa continues to be a bust, as Chad surrenders and basically these countries surrender as well. The war in Europe starts to become bad for Eastern Europe, as Eastern Europe starts to surrender really fast within 5 months. And Switzerland surrenders as well. This is pretty bad, as they underestimated Russia's ability. USA thought that Russia wouldn't be able to do anything, as they were completely surrounded. But Russia does not have to worry about mostly Asia, as Asia also surrenders as well with the help of Iran as well. Meanwhile, the Middle East continues to do pretty well. And Turkey, however, regained their land back and start to do an invasion on Greece and Bulgaria. This will serve as a massive distraction for Russia, as well as they'll try as basically Turkey is attempting to liberate Georgia as well. Egypt was also able to push back against Egypt like they did in the 1960s, and Israel completely takes over the Sinai Peninsula. This is very bad news for Russia as they completely lose the Suez Canal. Also, Algeria starts to make a breakthrough in the Battle of Tunisia, and Tunisia loses a bunch of land. Portugal completely loses, which finally makes. Meanwhile, Finland and Norway completely defeat Sweden, along with the help of Denmark. However, Denmark did not hold strong and was invaded and taken over by Germany. Britain is basically prolonging the life of these three countries, as well as Finland does what they did way back then and start to invade Russia. They actually start to take lands away from Russia, even though it's mostly like unpopulated areas. Because most of Russia's army is not focused on Finland, Russia's army made another very grave mistake and underestimated Finland for the second time. So a country of around 140 million is being beaten by a country of just around 5 million yen. Finland starts to invade portions of this area, and starts to also defeat Estonia as well. Well, this causes alarm bells in Russia, and Russia stops helping Germany and goes back to its home front. India starts to invade Bangladesh even more. Bangladesh loses relatively quickly, even with the help of China and Myanmar, as China and Myanmar also have to worry about Thailand and its invasion of Myanmar. They can't go any further because it's China. They're going to have to wait for America to take care of the situation in the Americas as well. The invasion of Panama goes smoother as the U.S. finally defeated the Caribbean countries, and it seems like the Latin America distraction continues to not be a distraction anymore, and starts to become basically the U.S. just steamrolling Central America. This portion of the world is now being defeated relatively easily. And now Guatemala is being defeated. However, this distraction was very strategic for China either way, as it basically caused Europe to basically collapse. And yes, France is still holding on. And a year later, Ireland finally surrenders as well. Another front was created in East Africa. No, Western Africa, not East Africa. East Africa as well. East Africa is the other side. But Western Africa starts to basically be defeated as well. And the Gambia is also liberated as well. The invasion of Mali begins. Basically, this portion of the country is defeated. Morocco also starts to be invaded by Spain, the U.S., and Algeria. All three countries basically just start to invade Morocco and destroy Morocco as a country, which causes Morocco by the first year of the war to surrender. A new front is basically being created in West Africa, and this is the new front in West Africa. No one is invading the Algerian desert, but they do invade it anyways, and it doesn't take that long to invade it as well. Also, it seems that they're also struggling against Ethiopia. Since Ethiopia took out Somalia and now Somalia's ports can be used. And also, they took out a significant portion of Kenya. It seems that Africa is mostly the central portion of the continent versus a lot of the coastal regions as well. Well, India starts to retake its states over here as well. India starts to make its first offensive move into Pakistan. China is starting to see that they are not winning this war. They are not winning the war against the US and India. Yeah, this war has been tiresome for countries like India. Yeah, and Pakistan starts to be invaded. The invasion of Armenia begins, and Armenia is losing relatively quickly. The invasion of Greece begins, and Turkey basically starts a liberation of Europe, like in World War II. They first start to liberate some of the allies, some of the fallen allies, including Macedonia and Albania. Both of these countries gracefully thank Turkey for what they have done. Meanwhile, Bulgaria continues to be invaded and continues to lose. Germany starts to continue the invasion of France, but unlike in World War II, France does not surrender. France is not making that mistake again. Considering that France has all of these allies, Spain is starting to send a lot of troops to save France, as France spent a lot of the troops trying to defeat Morocco, which left them defeated on the homeland. Russia starts to move back in again, and which also is the reason why Germany had to halt the invasion of that country. Finland is pushed back a tiny bit as well. Korea finally surrenders. It took China a whole year to defeat Korea, but it's now just Japan, Taiwan, and Philippines, which the Chinese Navy is unable to do. Meanwhile, in the first year, all of New Zealand is defeated, and Australia makes quick work of New Guinea with US help. And the help of these useless islands over here, which worries Indonesia. But the thing is, Philippines is blocking China from helping Indonesia, which makes Indonesia all on its own. Meanwhile, Mexico and most of Central America is defeated, which makes the US have to focus on South America. A massive invasion of Venezuela begins by the US. And so far, in the first 2 years of the war, around the same amount of people have died as in World War II, which means more people have died than World War II. The invasion of Africa continues, and the invasion of Ethiopia of East Africa continues, and Ethiopia starts to invade South Sudan. South Sudan is a very weak country, so South Sudan, then, as well, loses. But Sudan is a much more difficult country to invade than Sudan, given that Sudan has much more people and is one of the most populated countries in Africa, having around 40 million people as well. Meanwhile, parts of Azerbaijan gets to be liberated, and while of Georgia gets to be liberated as well. This makes Russia very infuriated because these areas were defeated by Russia. So at the beginning of the war, but it seems that they are starting to be liberated. It seems that Turkey starts to become a very great ally, and also starts to invade this part of Iran as well. However, because Egypt is distracted, which means Egypt cannot help its allies in the south. The invasion of Ghana begins as well. Meanwhile, Burkina Faso continues to be liberated more and more. Tunisia continues to be defeated as the invasion of Sicily begins. It is a very risky invasion, but it is being able to be pulled off by Algeria and Spain. Algeria may have a lot of its land taken out, but only 10% of people live here, and Algeria slowly starts to take back its desert as well. Well, things are going pretty badly for this portion of Africa as well, as this entire portion of the continent starts to get liberated as well, and there might be a massive push very soon in the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Angola pretty soon. The rest of New Guinea is captured by Australia, and island hopping starts to begin like in World War II. 2 years, USA and Australia start to invade these islands that are owned by Indonesia and are winning in the island wars. Also, Malaysia, with the help of Philippines, is able to liberate its Borneo half, and Indonesia is starting to lose the war as Indonesia starts to collapse under its government. The invasion of Myanmar starts to begin, and Myanmar loses pretty quickly, as Myanmar was only winning because of China. India liberates this entire area in Bhutan, and also Nepal surrenders. Pakistan also surrenders within a year, and Iran is now surrounded by both China and both India, by both India and Turkey, which sounds alarm bells in the Chinese alliance. Brazil has to now worry about the US in the third year of the war. Venezuela is super close to losing the war, along with Guyana. Both countries are super. Guyana basically is at the end is mostly just fighting Brazil's army. The U.S. is sending troops overseas, and Venezuela surrenders by around year 3. The gains made by Brazil are lost almost immediately, as with the U.S. help, most of the coastal populated areas are lost. As well. The invasion of Angola and Tanzania begin, and they surrender very quickly. West of Mali is captured, and the invasion and Greece surrenders as well. Europe continues to be liberated as well. Well, which causes Russia to panic greatly, as they're now reaching in the doorstep of Ukraine. Estonia is also defeated as well, and Latvia is also liberated as well. Finland and partially Norway in the British Army start to make a massive invasion in Russia. Russia and Germany are starting to run out of troops, which is a problem as well. China is unable to help them, as India is starting to put pressure onto China, and the Netherlands is defeated relatively quickly, along with Slovenia and Hungary. All 3 countries are being defeated in a relative small amount of time. The invasion of northern Egypt begins. as well. It seemed that China's side is put on a back foot as Algeria completely liberates the desert in the third year of the war. And Libya is completely defeated, and Libya starts to be invaded as well. Alongside, the boot of Italy starts to be invaded. And this island is taken, and France is able to take back its island. And also takes back French Guiana as well, and defeats and liberates Suriname. With Mali surrendering, the invasion of Niger begins. Niger is being defeated relatively quickly, as Niger is among the poorest countries in the world. Togo is liberated alongside the rest of Burkina Faso, and Benin is defeated as well, along with Rwanda and Burundi are defeated, and Uganda is liberated as well in the third year of the war. Also, South Sudan surrenders, and China starts to realize the mistake of investing heavily in Africa. Most of these countries are very poor, except for like Nigeria, and the DRC cannot really fund this war, which is a big problem as they start to attack Kinshasa and its surrounding regions, which causes the Democratic Republic of the Congo to basically collapse within a month. The Africa front is almost completely abandoned, as Indonesia is down to just Java at this point around 4 months of the war. And Korea is starting to be liberated as well. And goes up to the border of North Korea. Russia completely gives up on the war in Central Europe, which leaves Germany and Italy alone and causes more of Europe to be liberated, and a lot of Poland to be liberated as well. Causes most of Poland and Denmark to be liberated. And also a major invasion of Germany begins. Germany decided not to surrender until the last man, which leaves Berlin left hanging on its own as Europe is liberated, basically, like it is in World War II. A couple months later, Germany completely surrenders, which leaves the war in South America. It is mostly just Brazil left, and it's only a matter of time before Brazil loses. More African nations surrender, leaving just Nigeria holding on. As well. Iran is also taken out. Also is now been invaded as well, along with Turkmenistan. Afghanistan is going to take a while longer as well. 3 months later, Nigeria surrenders and Brazil finally is defeated. And also Java is finally invaded by Australia and Thailand and the US allies. North Korea is liberated as well. And Korea is unified once again. Meanwhile, Japan starts to invade a lot of Siberia, which puts a lot of pressure on Russia. Myanmar surrenders, and Vietnam takes back its land. And a massive invasion of southern China begins. Things are not looking too good for China and its alliance. as Central Asia starts to become liberated. As well in the conflict, leaving thus China and Russia on their own. The last two of the red team. Unlike no winter is here to save Russia, as it's really just a war against Russia and China. Both countries surrender. Leaving the US team victorious. Goodbye.